So Takumi was born into this world after the god accidentally kills him, and along with some incredible powers, he gets sent straight into another world. And after arriving there, Takumi finds two kids in a forest called the Forest of Gaia, and both of them are in really bad shape. So Takumi feeds them some food, and the moment they eat, they become incredibly happy. But since their clothes are all torn up, Takumi gives them fresh new clothes to wear. But when Takumi tries talking to them afterward, neither of them says a single word. So Takumi checks their status and discovers something surprising. These kids don't even have names. So he decides to name the girl Elena and the boy Alan, and after that he starts walking with them to get out of the forest. But the moment some monsters show up in front of them, both kids take them down with total ease, leaving Takumi completely stunned. And that's when he realizes just how powerful these two actually are. But despite them beating the monster, Takumi still gently pats their heads, and by the time they make it through the forest, it's already evening. So the three of them light a fire and eat together, then build a protective barrier and sleep inside it for the night. And in the next scene, the three of them reach a city, but the guards ask for identification cards to let them in, and since they don't have any, the guard tells them they can get identity cards made at the Adventurers Guild. But before heading there, Takumi stops by a church to talk to the very god who accidentally killed him and tells him about the two kids he found in the forest. And that's when Takumi learns something huge. This god was the one who actually sent these kids to him, and there are 4 other gods in this world besides him, and these children are not ordinary kids at all, and Takumi will need to take good care of them. In the next scene, Takumi rents a room for the 3 of them to stay in, and the 2 kids get super excited bouncing around on the soft mattress. The next morning, they head to the Adventurers Guild, where they meet a receptionist named Luna, who makes their guild cards, which double as identity cards, and she explains that this world has ranks going from F all the way up to double F, and you can form a party to go adventuring together, earning money by defeating monsters and selling the materials you get. So Takumi forms his own party with the 2 kids and names it White Wings, then picks a job for them, which involves finding a medicinal herb, and the 3 of them head into a nearby forest, where Takumi shows Alan and Elena what the herb looks like, and once they see it, the 2 of them start collecting it like crazy, gathering huge amounts in no time, and after selling that herb at the guild, they earn some money. But suddenly a man storms into the guild and starts yelling angrily at the 2 kids, and when Takumi tries to calm him down, the man grabs Takumi by the collar, and seeing that, both kids immediately attack him. But right then another man walks in, someone we've briefly seen before. His name is Glenwald, and right at that moment both kids burst into tears because they think Takumi is going to abandon them now that they attacked someone. But Takumi reassures them, telling them he'll never leave them, and after that we learn this man is actually the 2nd captain of the Siren Division Knights of the Kingdom of Gawaya. And here Takumi tells him the kids were found in the Forest of Gaia, which shocks him because the Forest of Gaia is an extremely dangerous place that only E-rank adventurers are allowed to enter. And Glenwald hands over the responsibility of these 2 kids to Takumi, then explains that monsters from the Forest of Gaia keep attacking their city whenever they feel like it. So they're planning an expedition to wipe some of them out, but they're short on manpower, so he asks Takumi to join them. But Takumi says his rank is only F, though Wald completely brushes that off and goes to talk to the guild master about it. And after speaking to the guild master about Takumi, we skip ahead a whole month, during which the 3 of them settle into life in the city, always taking on normal easy jobs. But the bread here doesn't taste anywhere near as good as the bread from Takumi's world. So he visits a bakery and asks the owner to try making bread a totally new way, but the man has no idea how. So Takumi demonstrates it himself, and the baker picks it up incredibly fast, and together they whip up some fresh bread that turns out absolutely delicious. So the baker asks if he can start selling this new bread in his shop, and Takumi has no problem with that. Then we see Takumi back at the guild, where he learns he's reached level 30, and Luna suggests he try exploring the city's labyrinth, which has 15 floors. So Takumi agrees to take Alan and Elena down into it, though Luna warns him it can get pretty dangerous down there. And in the next scene, the 3 of them are already on the 3rd floor, breezing through with total ease, with Alan and Elena leading the way, when suddenly a monster appears in front of them, and the 2 kids take it down in an instant. And the moment a monster is defeated in this labyrinth, it vanishes vanishes completely, but leaves behind an item, like this one drop of whisker that isn't particularly useful. And after walking for a while, Takumi decides it's time to make dinner, so the three of them eat together and sleep inside a protective barrier, and the next day they run into more monsters, easily beating them and moving forward, and by the time they hit the 10th floor, they find a hidden spot with a box containing two potions. One is a mana potion and the other a stamina potion, but then a monster shows up which the kids knock out with a single kick, and right after that a clay snake appears which Takumi slices apart with a wind attack, and then a swarm of giant bees comes at them, and at first the kids struggle a bit, but they quickly figure it out using their smarts and defeat them, earning some incredibly valuable honey from the bees, and they decide to hunt down even more bees just to collect more honey. And afterward, Takumi whips up a dish using that honey and bread, which turns out absolutely delicious. More bees show up and the three of them easily take them all out, collecting plenty of honey, and finally they reach the 10th floor, where the final boss awaits, and the moment they step inside, a giant earthworm appears, and it immediately attacks Takumi, but he dodges and strikes back with a wind arrow, taking it down in one hit. After defeating it, they get some items, and since Takumi is the one who beat the boss, the two kids proudly pat his head in praise. Then a teleportation device appears in front of them, and right next to it another box, this one full of bombs, which the kids start playing with until Takumi snatches them away. Then all three place their hands on the teleportation device and instantly appear outside the labyrinth. But right then a Volf shows up in front of them, and checking its status, Takumi realizes this is actually his own contracted beast, an S-rank Fenrir, and he assumes it was sent by Syl, and this beast immediately starts obeying every word Takumi says, and the two kids absolutely adore this Volf, so Takumi names it Jewel. But since they can't just walk this beast into the city, since regular people would panic seeing something like this, Takumi hides it in his own shadow, then heads to the church to meet the water god Syl, and there Takumi learns that Syl never actually sent any contracted beast, but he promises to send Takumi one soon, meaning this Volf was sent by some other god, likely because of how well Takumi's taking care of these kids, and Syl suspects it's the wind god. In the next scene, the three of them are exhausted and fast asleep after their exhausting labyrinth trip, and the next day they're all out in an open field when suddenly two more beasts appear in front of Alan and Elena, and these turn out to be contracted beasts sent by the wind god Silphiril. One is a heavenly tiger, an S-rank monster that can control wind, and the other is a thunderhawk, and a rank monster that can control lightning, and they get named Bull for the hawk and Feet for the tiger, and Alan and Elena immediately start petting them lovingly, and after that Takumi puts collars on all three beasts, which were also sent by Syl, and Jewel and Feet shrink themselves down in size so Takumi can now bring them along into town, since to everyone else they'll just look like a dog and a cat. But then Alan and Elena insist they want collars too, and Takumi tells them no, collars are for animals. But then he finds something else in his inventory meant for them, a father's locket, which makes both kids incredibly happy, and this locket resists both magical and physical attack, and it also comes with a ring that lets Takumi always know exactly where Alan and Elena are, and along with all this Syl also sent to bags for the kids to carry all sorts of items, and now the two of them are all set to go, and Bold becomes Takumi's shadow, and they all head toward the town, where Alan and Elena show their identity cards to the gatekeeper before entering, and while walking Elena's eyes land on some stuffed toys, so Takumi takes them into that shop, and first he buys two ribbons for Elena, tying them into her hair, making her even cuter, and Elena smiles seeing herself in the mirror. Then Takumi starts picking out more ribbons, but Elena falls in love with a black one because its color matches Takumi's own hair, and that genuinely touches him. Then Takumi asks Alan if he wants anything, but since it's a girl's shop, Alan doesn't really find anything for himself until a shop girl offers to let the kids try on some outfit, and she dresses up Alan and Elena in super cute clothes, making them look even more adorable. So Takumi asks if she designed all these clothes herself, and she says yes, explaining that the moment she saw these kids, she just imagined how they'd look in these outfits, and seeing them so happy, Takumi buys the whole set from her. That night while everyone's asleep, Takumi lies awake wondering what he should buy for Alan specifically, thinking about what little boys usually like, and he remembers what gifts people used to bring him as a kid, but none of that stuff exists in this world. And thinking about all this, he eventually drifts off to sleep. The next day, everyone wakes him up together, and Takumi notices the weather looks great. So he plans a monster hunting trip into the forest of Gaia to take down monsters that harm humans, since it's common for knights and adventurers here to team up and clear out that forest to keep monsters away from the town. And this time Takumi's joining them too, since Glenwald asked him to, and so Takumi heads over to meet him, though Alan and Elena are still a little nervous around him, and they'll be tagging along into the forest too. Then Vice Captain Isaac Regner approaches Takumi, apologizing that he has to come along because their captain forced it, and Takumi says it's totally fine. He actually thinks this'll be a great experience, but Isaac is a bit worried about the kids too. So Wald reassures him that they're extremely strong, but the two kids get scared of him and hide behind Takumi, so Takumi apologizes, explaining they're just not used to being around so many people, and then he lifts both of them onto his shoulders, and everyone gets ready to head out in horse-drawn carriages toward the forest of Gaia. But suddenly Takumi senses something, like someone's staring at them with really strange eyes, though he brushes it off thinking maybe people are just uncomfortable that kids are joining the mission. Then Takumi, Alan, and Elena climb into Glenwald's carriage, and it'll take about an hour to reach the forest, and guards sitting with them tell Alan and Elena they've heard a lot about them, saying they'll all work together, and soon they arrive at the forest of Gaia, planning to stay there for 5 days, split into 3 units taking different paths before meeting up at a designated campsite. And Wald introduces Takumi to the other adventurers joining their unit. First, this party called Dragon's Wrath. This man is Rudolph, this girl is Reese, this guy is Glim, and this one is Jack. Takumi introduces himself to, and we learn Rudolph is an E-rank adventurer, and the team moves forward. But almost immediately Alan and Elena signal that a monster is approaching, and when Takumi tells Wald about it, Wald looks around and sees absolutely nothing, so he tries using his detection magic, but senses nothing either. Detection is a type of magic that lets its user sense how many creatures are nearby, but what Alan and Elena have is called perception, which lets them sense incoming danger specifically, and a little while later Glim actually detects something approaching, and everyone braces for battle, and they realize it's a red wolf heading their way. But the moment they spot it, Alan and Elena immediately charge to attack it, worrying poor Takumi, and both of them kick that red wolf clean across the battlefield, shocking everyone else, and proud of their win. The two of them grab the wolf and carry it over to Takumi, not realizing that killing monsters outside the labyrinth doesn't actually give you drop. That's only inside labyrinth, but Takumi just pats their heads anyway and says, "Alright, now us grown-ups will handle the monster fighting, so you to take a little break from combat." But right then Wald walks up to Takumi, completely confused, asking how on earth these two kids just took down a C-rank monster, and Takumi reminds him he's already seen them beat a C-rank adventurer before, and mentions again that he found these two kids in the forest. Wald asks where exactly, and Takumi says right here in the forest of Gaia, which stuns everyone, because that means these two little kids survived alone in this dangerous forest and lived to tell the tale. Takumi admits he has no idea how they fought off or avoided all those monsters, but he's certain these two were stuck in this forest for quite a few days, and even back when he first met them, they were already incredibly powerful. Meanwhile, the water god Syl is watching all of this unfold, feeling guilty that he's put Takumi in such a dangerous situation, and he prays that they all make it out of this forest safely. But then he remembers, wait, I'm literally a god. I could just handle this myself. After that, the group continues forward, and Alan and Elena discover some spirit grass in the forest, an herb used to make medicine, and Takumi praises them for finding it, telling them they can't just run off wherever they please. And hearing that, the two kids look pleadingly at Wald, prompting him to say they're allowed to run off, just keep an eye on them. Then Alan and Elena point out another type of grass, slimy rock moss, which is used to make anti-itching medicine, and the moment Wald hears that it treats itching, he gets super excited and tells everyone to gather as much of it as possible. But just as Wald reaches to grab it himself, Isaac stops him, warning that if he doesn't handle it carefully, its spores will spread through the air and cause rashes all over his body, which is exactly why the kids ask Takumi to collect it instead, and one of the guards tells Takumi that Isaac always lectures Glenwald like this whenever he messes something up, and we see Takumi carefully cutting the grass ingredients with a knife and placing it into small bags. While Isaac continues scolding Wald in the background and feeling bad for Wald, Takumi quietly tells the kids something, and they walk up to Isaac holding out a little pouch of that grass, saying it's for him, which completely shifts Isaac's attention onto the kids, letting Wald slip away. And Takumi tells the two of them they did a great job, but right then they spot a group of orcs approaching, including a high orc among them, and Rudolph says his party will handle the high orc. So Takumi slices through one of the regular orcs with his wind cutter, and the battle kicks off, with Alan and Elena just watching from the sidelines, and moments later every single orc lies defeated. But then Glenwald turns to Takumi and asks how he took down an orc so effortlessly, wondering just who he really is, and hearing that, Alan and Elena start glaring angrily at him. So Wald backs off and instead says, "You took down an orc alone so easily, but that's really tough for the rest of us. Are you seriously an F rank?" Takumi admits he actually just got promoted to E rank recently, and hearing this, Wald turns to Rudolph and says once they're back in town, they should ask the guild master to bump Takumi's rank up. And here Takumi learns that if a high-ranking adventurer personally recommends someone, the guild master can use their authority to raise that person's rank to a certain extent. But then Isaac points out something odd, saying it's suspicious that they ran into such a massive group of monsters right at the entrance of the forest, insisting they should investigate this properly. But right then Alan and Elena announce they're hungry, so everyone takes a break, and Takumi pulls out some bread from his inventory for the two of them. And Wald is completely floored, calling it legendary bread since only 20 loaves of this bread get sold each single day. And he asks where Takumi even got it, and Takumi explains they made it especially for him personally, which stuns Wald even more, and he asks for a bite. But the kids refuse to share, and since everyone's mouth is watering over this bread, Takumi decides to treat the whole group today, and they all peacefully enjoy some bread together before gearing back up for the mission. And as they move forward, they spot a red flare in the sky, meaning someone's calling for help. So the whole group rushes toward it since one of their units must be in danger, but they're not moving fast enough. So Takumi decides to sprint ahead alone, and Alan and Elena insist on coming too. So Alan uses his wind powers to zoom the three of them forward at incredible speed, and when they arrive they see a unit under attack from a high-ranking evolved Red Wolf pack. So Takumi summons his katana, and the three of them charge straight into battle against these monsters, leaving the entire unit stunned watching them fight. And by the time Wald and everyone else catch up, the three of them have already defeated every single Wolf. And Wald asks Takumi if he really took down these blood wolves, and Takumi confirms it, and Wald says he never expected Takumi to be this strong, petting him on the back. But the moment he does that, Alan and Elena start glaring at him angrily again, and right then Isaac tells the kids that next time the captain pulls something like this, they should just kick him and send him flying. And Takumi tells them, just don't kick too hard, okay? And seeing poor Glenwald get treated like that, everyone bursts out laughing, Alan, Elena, and Takumi included. But suddenly Takumi senses something again, which makes Alan and Elena tense up in fear too. So Takumi reassures them not to worry, but internally he's thinking, this feels exactly like what I sensed this morning. Something's definitely watching us. And finally, we're shown a mysterious figure observing them. Meanwhile, back at camp in the forest of Gaia, dinner preparations are underway. But it's obvious none of these knights know the first thing about cooking. Someone's hacking huge chunks of meat. Someone else is dumping way too much salt into the food. And watching all this makes Takumi visibly uncomfortable. So Wald explains that they're all knights. None of them know how to cook properly. So Takumi asks if Iris, one of the female knights, can cook either, and a guy tells him, oh trust me, if you eat anything she makes you'll go straight to heaven, which cracks everyone up, and worried about feeding Alan and Elena something terrible. Takumi offers to help with the cooking, guiding the knights step by step, and with his instructions the food turns out great. Both kids and everyone else absolutely loving it, and Takumi feels really proud of himself, but because he cooked so well, the next morning everyone expects him to cook again too. So poor Takumi ends up on breakfast duty as well. But he senses again that someone's watching them, so he pulls Alan and Elena close to him. In the next scene, the group continues through the forest, and Wald notices something's off. They're encountering way fewer monsters than expected, and joining them now is 3rd Captain Ferris Tierra, the same man whose group Takumi helped earlier. And everyone finds it strange that yesterday, the 3rd Captain's team got swarmed by tons of monsters, yet today, there's nothing at all. But Takumi is more preoccupied wondering who exactly keeps watching them, and because he's so distracted thinking about this, he completely fails to notice a genuinely dangerous enemy closing in, a giant snake, and once he spots it, Takumi warns everyone, and this snake truly is massive, terrifying even Alan and Elena, and suddenly it lashes out with its tail at the knights, creating a huge shockwave, and Takumi tries hitting it with his windbreaker, but it dodges completely, so Ferris uses earth magic to spike up the ground, temporarily stopping the snake. Meanwhile, Rudolph tells the injured to fall back, and Takumi warns Alan and Elena that this monster is extremely dangerous, telling them to stay away, and as the snake breaks through those spiked rocks, Rudolph and Jack attack it, but their attacks have zero effect because this evil viper's skin resists both magical and physical damage, and the snake lashes out again, injuring more knights, and Wald says if this keeps up, none of them are getting out alive. Meanwhile, Iris and Isaac are treating the wounded soldiers, but the snake notices them and starts moving to attack, so Takumi uses his windbreaker to slice down a huge tree, blocking its path, and then Wald attacks it with his own magic, but it does nothing. Then Glim and Iris combine their magic for a massive explosion attack, but even that barely scratches the giant snake, and it turns to attack them next. But right then Takumi spots Alan and Elena literally climbing onto the monster itself, and the moment it notices them, Takumi pulls out a knife and stabs it right in the eye, causing it enormous pain. But then Takumi senses that strange presence again, and just as his focus slips for a second, the monster strikes Alan and Elena, sending them flying. But Iris rushes in to help since Takumi can't reach them because of the evil viper blocking his path, and furious now, Takumi turns to Rudolph and asks if he can buy him some time, saying he's about to use advanced wind magic, and it's clear Takumi has completely lost his patience at this point. So Rudolph steps up to distract the monster while Takumi begins casting his spell, and everyone else keeps the evil viper occupied. Then, once Takumi signals Rudolph, everyone clears away from the snake, and Takumi unleashes his advanced wind magic spell, Wind Edge, which slams directly into the evil viper, creating a massive shockwave of pressure. And right before everyone's eyes, the giant snake gets completely obliterated into dust, and its remains are scattered everywhere from the force of Takumi's attack. But the trees around them also get sliced through in the process, and they're about to come crashing down. So everyone quickly clears the area, and Takumi looks at the sheer scale of his own attack, honestly stunned by it himself, and even Rudolph is completely amazed, telling Takumi that evil viper blood is an extremely valuable material he should collect. And then Alan and Elena run up to Takumi, who asks if they're okay, and they say yeah. So Takumi thanks Iris for healing their wounds, and she says their injuries are already healed, but to keep an eye on them. And Takumi thinks to himself that if these were ordinary children, they could have easily died in that attack, and vows to never let something like this happen again. But suddenly he senses something once more, and he walks straight up to a knight, slams him to the ground, presses a sword against him, and says, "Don't move," leaving everyone completely shocked. Wald asks what he's doing, and Takumi says, "Ask him." So Wald asks the guy, Zegas, "Did you do something?" And he denies it. So Takumi says, "Then why have you been glaring daggers at me this entire time?" And Rudolph confirms, "Yeah, ever since we joined this mission, you've been staring at Takumi nonstop." Why exactly? At first, Zegas refuses to admit anything, but after more pressure, he finally confesses, "This is your fault. How does a plain nobody commoner like you become friends with Captain Glenn Wald?" And neither Alan nor Elena can quite understand what he's even talking about. So Isaac explains to Takumi that this man's name is Zegas Kronos, and he's basically declared to the entire world that he's in love with the captain. And hearing that, Takumi is left utterly speechless, so Walt quickly says, "No, that's not true at all. I like girls." But Zegas says, "But right now, there's no girl in your heart at all." And Takumi genuinely doesn't know what to call this whole situation, and Walt repeats, "I said I only like girls." Later that evening, Isaac apologizes to Takumi for everything he had to endure because of this whole mess, and says Zegas will be punished for it, though honestly Takumi doesn't care much whether Zegas gets punished or not, because he's just relieved that Alan and Elena are completely fine. But if something like this happens again, he won't let it slide so easily, meaning Takumi has essentially forgiven Zegas. Then Rudolph says after all that fighting he's absolutely exhausted and starving, asking Takumi to whip up something good to eat, and everyone else agrees. But Takumi honestly doesn't feel like cooking for these knights, though Alan and Elena say it would be really fun eating with the knights, and seeing them so excited, Takumi decides to cook for the whole group, telling everyone to help him out, and Alan and Elena happily join into cracking eggs, though they end up smashing them completely and getting upset about it. So Takumi reassures them they'll get better with practice, pointing out that Iris, despite being fully grown, still can't crack an egg properly either. And after that, everyone sits down to eat, and here Takumi notices he's leveled up quite a bit, unlocking some new skills including water magic, meaning Takumi can now use water-based spells too. But then Walt comes over and apologizes for everything that happened today, and Takumi says he holds no grudge since the kids are completely fine, and Walt starts petting both kids' heads, saying how adorable they are. Then Walt informs Takumi that a lot of people got injured today, so they're wrapping up the mission here since pushing further would be way too risky, and as a reward for joining this mission, Takumi can collect his payment from the guild. But Alan and Elena say they had a blast on this mission, so Walt says he'll definitely be asking for Takumi's help again sometime. The next day, Takumi, Alan, and Elena arrive at the guild, where Luna has been eagerly waiting for Takumi, and she leads him inside to meet the guild master. "My name is John. I'm the guild master of Siren's Adventure Guild." Takumi introduces himself too, and John says Captain Glenn Wald and Rudolph have both told me your current rank doesn't suit you at all. Forgive me for saying this, but I honestly don't think you're quite as powerful as they claimed. However, since both of them personally recommended you, I'm promoting you straight to rank A. And hearing that, Luna exclaims, "Wow, rank A that fast?" So the guild master tells her to stay calm. Then he adds, "Apparently you've also defeated blood wolves and an evil viper," and Takumi confirms it, saying he never expected to get bumped up to rank A this quickly. And John says it's no problem at all, then adds, "I've also heard these two children are incredibly powerful as well, so tell me, what would you like to do? Because if we put two children at a high rank, it could raise serious concerns among people. But if they stay at rank E, you won't be able to accept high rank quests, because a party's overall rank gets adjusted based on the rank of most of its members, meaning if Takumi is rank A and the kids are rank E, he wouldn't be able to take on high rank quests. But the kids have no idea what any of this even means, so Takumi suggests putting them at rank D instead, which would bring the party's overall rank down to C, letting Takumi accept rank B quests, and the guild master agrees to exactly that. Then Alan and Elena hand their guild cards to Luna so she can update their rank, but Luna suddenly looks at Takumi in shock, saying, "You three completely cleared the Earth Labyrinth. You only went there a few days ago. How did you finish it so fast?" And Luna knows all this because every single detail gets logged onto your guild card automatically. She adds that they've just set a brand new record. So Takumi asks, "Luna, could you please keep this a secret? Because I really don't want extra attention. It could cause problems for these two kids as well," and Luna agrees to keep it quiet. After finishing all the paperwork, Takumi receives the reward for his mission, and he says, "All right, let's head home." But Luna reminds him, "Wait, aren't you forgetting something? All those materials from the Forest of Gaia's monsters, you're going to sell them to us, right? Come with me to the storage house." So Takumi tells the kids he needs to go drop off that giant snake, telling them to wait right there for him. And in the next scene, everyone at the storage house is completely stunned seeing the pieces of that evil viper, though Takumi kept some materials for himself, saying he'll keep 1/3 of every monster's materials or meat, and let the guild keep the rest, which makes Luna incredibly happy. Then Takumi pulls out even more materials to sell, delighting Luna even further. But the two kids start getting annoyed watching her reaction, until she thanks Alan and Elena Elena specifically for these materials, making them happy too. After finishing up everything, Takumi is completely exhausted, but the two kids are still buzzing with excitement. So Takumi asks if they can all go rest at the hotel now, and they agree. And the moment Takumi reaches his room and lies down on the bed, he instantly falls asleep, and everyone wishes him good night. Next, we see Takumi relaxing peacefully on a grassy field, while Alan and Elena play nearby with Jewel and Feet, and Alan is making all sorts of expressions in front of Jewel. So Takumi walks over and asks what he's doing, and the kids explain they're teaching Jewel and the other beast how to talk. And Takumi says that sounds like it'll be so much fun once they can actually communicate. In the next scene, Takumi is teaching Alan and Elena how to count, along with basic money concepts, like which coin is worth what, and the two of them are picking it up really well, and every time they answer correctly, Takumi praises them, making them super happy. Then Takumi asks them how much it would cost to buy one apple and one orange, and after thinking it through and doing the math themselves, they come up with the exact right answer. And next we get a town scene where the three of them go shopping. The marketplace bustling with activity, and first they stop at a fruit stall where Takumi asks if they've decided what they want. Alan points at some fruit and says he wants 5 of these, and the seller tells him it costs 235 gold coins. So Alan pulls out the exact right amount from his bag, and Takumi praises him. Then it's Elena's turn, and she picks 5 apples, costing 30 gold coins, and she pays the exact amount too. So Takumi praises her as well, and the seller says how smart these kids are. Then the three of them take their fruit and leave, with Takumi storing everything in his inventory. Next they head to a bookstore, since Takumi wants to properly understand his water magic skills better, and while there he pulls out a book to show the kids, explaining these are called words, asking if they like to learn to read too, and they both say yes. But then an elderly woman walks up saying what adorable kids these are, offering to give them some nice books, and Takumi agrees, and after buying some books they leave the shop. The next day the three of them head to the guild to look for a good quest, and they pick one involving finding a lost cat, with Luna wishing them good luck, and the three of them head into the alleys to search for this cat named Mina. And once they arrive at the spot where the cat went missing, Takumi releases his pets to help with the search too, and they all split up searching different areas, finding plenty of cats along the way, just not Mina. And eventually Alan and Elena start feeling discouraged, so Takumi suggests they search a different area, and once again they run into all sorts of different cats, but still no Mina. So Takumi asks the kids if they should just give up the search, and they insist they want to keep looking, and then they all point in the same direction, sensing they should search there. And right then Jewel picks up a scent, and they spot a cat, and it's her, Mina, a black cat with white paws, and Takumi says they need to approach gently or she gets scared, so the kids slowly move toward her. But as they get close, she starts growling at them until Alan shows her his locket, and seeing it she calms down and walks right up to them, letting Takumi pick her up, and thinking she might be hungry. Takumi pulls out some milk and pours it into a bowl, which she happily drinks, and watching her drink makes Alan and Elena incredibly happy, which makes Takumi happy too. And after that the three of them return the cat to her owner at the guild, and Takumi asks if it's time to head home, but the kids say they want to keep searching for more quests, so Takumi asks Luna if there's another one available, and she says yeah, though it's a bit tricky killing goblins, since goblins have been causing serious trouble in a nearby village, and no high-rank adventurer wants to take this quest because it's not very profitable, while low-rank adventurers wouldn't be able to handle goblins at all. So Takumi asks the kids about it, though they have no clue what goblins even are, and the three of them ride Feet and Jewel to that village dealing with goblin attacks, and Takumi has Jewel and Feet shrink down again before entering, but the guards initially stop them, until Takumi explains that the adventurers who took the goblin extermination quest, and mentions he'd like to meet the village chief, and the guards let them through, leading Takumi to the chief, and Takumi learns that goblins have been attacking this village more and more frequently. And once at the chief's house, Takumi asks straight away about the goblin situation, but the chief first asks when the rest of Takumi's team will arrive, and Takumi explains it's just the three of them, which worries the chief, since Takumi doesn't look particularly strong at all. So Takumi shows him his guild card, and the chief is shocked to see Takumi's an E-rank adventurer, but then a man rushes in saying goblins are attacking the village right now. So Takumi says they'll go fight them off immediately, and the chief asks if he's really bringing kids along, and Takumi says yes, because he can protect them better when they're right in front of him. And outside chaos has erupted, goblins attacking everywhere, and one goblin is about to kill a woman, but Takumi takes it out instantly with an air shot, telling the villagers to hide somewhere safe, and the kids ask if they can fight too. And Takumi says yes, but carefully, and right then Bolt, Jewel, and Feet show up too, wanting to join the fight. So Takumi tells them fine, but stay in your small form. And just like that, Alan, Elena, Jewel, Feet, and even Bolt start wrecking every goblin in sight. But then a much bigger goblin appears, and Takumi realizes it's a high-rank goblin, thinking he'll have to handle this one himself. But in the very next moment, Alan and Elena team up and kick it down together, leaving Takumi's jaw hanging open. He barely had to do anything, and every last goblin was already defeated. And Takumi says, "Wow, you guys took down every single goblin." And a voice replies, "Yeah," and this voice belongs to Jewel, who's apparently learned telepathy after defeating these goblins. And Jewel says, "Now I can finally talk with all of you, Master." And Takumi tells him to stop calling him Master. It sounds a bit weird, just call me Takumi. But Jewel isn't thrilled with that, so Alan and Elena suggest calling him Taku instead, since that's what they call him, and Jewel loves that idea. Then Feet says she call him Mr. Taku, and Bolt says he'll call him Chief, and all three of them have now learned telepathy, and from their voices Takumi learns Feet is female, Jewel is male, and Bolt is male. And Alan and Elena say now we can all talk to each other, and Takumi remembers how desperately eager Alan and Elena were to communicate with these beasts, and how much they've taught them along the way, so he starts petting both kids' heads, prompting Jewel and Feet to say pet us too. So Takumi does that as well, but then they notice a fire has broken out somewhere, and Takumi guesses the goblins probably caused it, saying, "Let's see how much I've actually improved with my water magic." And he casts his water ball spell at the fire, but nothing happens. He tries again, still nothing. So he gathers all his strength and casts a double water ball, and again, nothing happens. What is even going on here? Then Jewel simply uses his own water magic to put out the fire effortlessly, and poor Takumi realizes he clearly needs to master the basics of magic properly. But seeing him upset, Alan and Elena start petting his head, which makes Takumi feel really good, and by evening the entire village bids them farewell, and they get their reward for completing the quest. Then they head home, and Takumi thinks about how hard Alan and Elena worked today. First finding a cat, then defeating goblins. He figures they must be totally exhausted, but instead they ask Takumi to teach them reading, so he does, though Alan and Elena have no idea what a fish or an ocean even is, and that gives Takumi an idea. So the next day he calls Overpowered and Ferris to let them know he's leaving Siren, and they ask why, and Takumi explains he wants to show these two kids the wider world, so he's decided they'll head south toward the seaside town of Bailey. Hearing this makes Wald visibly sad, and as they leave, Wald comments that Takumi could have helped them so much fighting future monsters. He's incredibly capable, and so are those kids, and Ferris agrees completely. Then Takumi, Alan, and Elena go around saying goodbye to everyone who treated them well, and Luna is absolutely shocked hearing the news, asking, "You will come back for me, right?" And Takumi wonders for a second if she's fallen for him, but she clarifies, "Bring me lots of rare materials." Then the three of them stop by the bakery, and the couple there feels sad about them leaving too, and Alan and Elena promise they'll come visit again someday. And Takumi asks the baker for a favor, could he make enough bread to last them a few days for their journey, and the baker happily agrees. So Takumi shares different types of bread recipes with him, along with some ingredients to make even better bread, and the kids get super excited about the bread too. In the next scene we see Alan and Elena in brand new clothes, since they're buying summer wear for the trip, and the shop lady refuses to take any payment, saying it's her farewell gift to these two kids. And finally Takumi visits the church one last time to talk to the god Silphiril, or Sil for short, and Sil asks how he's doing, checking if if he's alright, and Takumi tells him to stop scaring him like that, which honestly hurts Sil's feelings a bit, saying, "You barely ever come visit me." So Takumi tells him they're leaving Siren for Bailey because he wants to show these kids the ocean, and Sil says that sounds wonderful, and Takumi says he'll talk to him properly once they reach Bailey, and Sil agrees to wait, and with that the three of them bid farewell to this town. But right before leaving, a man suddenly shows up and shouts these kids are my property, terrifying Alan and Elena instantly, because this is the very same man who was trying to sell them off before the monster attack forced him to abandon them in the forest as bait, so that the monsters would go after the kids while he escaped safely, and that's exactly why they got surrounded by so many monsters that day. And seeing the kids terrified of this man, Takumi uses his appraisal skill on him, discovering he's actually a slave trader, and the man demands, "Give these children back to me," and Takumi says these two are my siblings, and the man snaps back, "Do you really think I could mistake such unique children for anyone else?" And that's when Takumi finally understands why Alan and Elena were in such rough shape when he found them in that forest. This man literally threw them there as bait for monsters. Slaves usually carry a mark on their bodies identifying them as such, but these kids have absolutely no such mark, yet the man keeps shouting demanding the children back, and though Takumi is furious, he keeps himself composed, since protecting Alan and Elena matters more right now. And then some guards show up, and the man tells them Takumi stole his property. So Takumi asks the man to specify exactly what he supposedly stole, and the man says these children. So Takumi challenges him, "Where's your proof? Since these kids don't have any slave markings on them at all, are you trying to kidnap them by falsely claiming they're your slaves?" And right then Ferris and Glenn Wald arrive, and in the next scene, that man gets arrested completely, with Ferris and Wald backing up Takumi by publicly confirming these two children are Takumi's siblings. And after that, Takumi tells the shaken up kids, "Don't worry you two, I will never leave you both, ever." And hearing that, Alan and Elena burst into tears and hug Takumi tightly. Then Ferris hands Takumi a letter, an invitation for the provincial lord of Bailey, since Ferris already knows the lord of Bailey personally, and he tells Takumi to visit him once he arrives, saying Takumi can ask him for help with anything. And Takumi says if they ever run into trouble, he'll definitely reach out for help. And then Takumi tells Alan and Elena, "Alright, it's time to go. Say goodbye to Sir Ferris and Sir Walt." But Walt says, "It's fine, leave them be, they're still a bit shaken up from what just happened. Next time we meet, we'll meet with full energy again." And in the next scene, the three of them are already on their journey. But Takumi notices the kids still look a little down, so an idea pops into his head, "Hey, why don't we cut through the forest of Kaya on our way?" And next we see the three of them in this forest, releasing all three pets, and Alan and Elena start playing with them. But Takumi says, "We're heading on a really long trip. Can you two, Jewel and Feet, carry us there?" And both of them happily agree, and Bolt flies up into the sky to scout ahead for danger. But as they move forward, they run into a blood-soaked bear, and Bolt swoops in and takes out one of its eyes, letting Jewel and Feet finish it off in a single combined attack. Then another bear shows up, and they defeat that one just as easily too, prompting Alan and Elena to bet both their heads. But when Jewel tries licking Elena's face, Takumi stops him, saying you two just killed a blood-soaked bear. Your mouths are all dirty right now, and he cleans them off with his water magic before letting them lick the kids again. And seeing Alan and Elena laughing and playing happily again makes Takumi happy too. And by evening, they've made it through the forest of Kaya, setting up camp in an open clearing, and Takumi asks Alan and Elena what they'd like for dinner, and they say cream bread, but Takumi points out that's more of a breakfast thing, not dinner, and they agree. So Takumi tells them about a dish made with rice and egg, and they imagine it as literally rice and egg together, getting super excited to try it, and the beasts say they want to try that dish too. So Takumi says alright, everyone's having oyakodon tonight, and in the next scene dinner is ready, though it doesn't look exactly like what the kids imagined, but everyone happily digs in, with the beasts shrinking down to their small forms to eat properly, since if they ate at full size this meal would just be a single bite for them. And Alan and Elena absolutely love the dish, and everyone enjoys their meal together, and after that everyone goes to sleep except Takumi, who stays up staring at the stars. And in this world there are 3 moons, one red, one yellow, and one blue, and this time of year the blue moon isn't visible, and Takumi realizes it's been 2 months since he arrived arrived in this world, and he reminisces about everything that's happened so far, an absolutely wild adventure, and eventually drifts off to sleep himself. The next morning, they continue their journey, and before long the ocean comes into view, and once they reach the beach, Alan and Elena immediately start playing in the water, so Takumi warns them that ocean water is salty, so don't drink it. But seeing such a huge, beautiful ocean, they ask if they can drink it anyway, and Takumi says, "You want to know what it tastes like, then dip your finger in and try it." And the moment they do, they both make the most disgusted faces ever. Meanwhile, all the pets along with Alan and Elena start playing in the water, but suddenly Takumi hears a voice, though he can't see anyone, and looking closer he spots a girl out in the ocean, and he assumed she's drowning, so he starts checking his inventory for something to help her. But then the girl asks, "Are you Mr. Takumi?" And he says, "Yes, that's me." And she continues, "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Milena the mermaid." And hearing that, Takumi checks her status, confirming she really is a mermaid. And she continues, "A servant of the water god told me about you." And right then Alan and Elena run up asking who this is. And Takumi explains she's a mermaid who lives in the ocean, and it turns out this mermaid already knows both their names. So Takumi asks how exactly this water god's servant knows so much about him. And she explains, "We were told that you can help us with the problem we're currently facing." And Takumi asks what kind of help they need. And she says, "Please come to our village first. You'll understand everything once you're there." But her village is located underwater, and Takumi says they can't breathe underwater. Plus, poor Takumi doesn't even know how to swim. Every time he tries, he just sinks straight down. But then he remembers Sil gave him some pretty impressive stats, so maybe he actually can swim here. And as for the kid, they'll probably learn to swim instantly. And right then Milena says, "You won't have any trouble breathing underwater because I have these." And she uses her magic to hand Takumi some items, which turn out to be bracelets crafted using mermaid abilities, letting whoever wears them breathe underwater. And Takumi says, "Alright, I'll come with you, though I'm not sure if I can actually solve your problem." But she's overjoyed just knowing Takumi is coming along. And then his pets retreat back into his shadow, and Takumi puts the bracelets on Alan, Elena, and himself. And the kids get incredibly excited hearing they're about to go underwater, and once they're actually underwater, Takumi notices they're not even getting wet, because these bracelets create a protective layer around their bodies that keeps them dry. And as the three of them venture into the ocean, Takumi realizes he can breathe underwater and even talk normally, while Alan and Elena are having the time of their lives swimming around perfectly. Watching them, Takumi tries swimming himself, but just can't manage it, so Milena reassures him, "Don't worry, you'll learn to swim soon enough." And Takumi notices Milena's lower body is that of a fish, and as they continue, Takumi asks what kind of monsters live down here, and she explains there are sand crabs and hammerhead fish, though they're not particularly strong. And right then a hammerhead fish appears, which Alan and Elena defeat with a single kick, bringing it over to Takumi. But then a sand crab shows up too, and they go fight that as well, grabbing it and smashing it against a rock, prompting Milena to say these kids are incredibly strong. And Takumi mentions crabs are actually delicious to eat, asking if they'd like to try some, and they both say yes. And as they venture deeper, Takumi finally spots Milena's underwater kingdom, which all three of them find absolutely breathtaking, and this mermaid village is called Azure Palace. And first Milena asks Takumi to follow her behind the Azure Palace, since that's exactly where their problem lies. This massive ship, and Takumi says, "This is a sunken ship," and Milena explains, "Behind this ship is the entrance to the cave where we grow our coral, but the path there is completely blocked because of this ship. Everyone in our village tried moving it, but it wouldn't budge an inch." And once everyone had given up hope, the high priestess of Azure Palace heard the voice of the water god's servant, who told her that a boy named Takumi would solve this problem for us. And an idea strikes Takumi. Maybe he could just store this ship in his inventory. And he tries doing exactly that, and this massive ship fits into his inventory with surprising ease. And checking his inventory, Takumi confirms the ship is now safely stored away. And before Takumi can say anything else, he notices the entire village has gathered around, including the male merman too. And Milena thanks Takumi, but he says there's no need to thank him, you all should go check inside the cave, and two mermaids swim off to inspect it. While Milena explains that the coral inside this cave is used to make all kinds of essential medicines for them, and Takumi says he hopes Perhaps the coral inside is completely intact. And Milena says, "Now, let me take you to meet our high priestess." The next day, the three of them arrive with Milena at Azure Palace, and once inside, Milena knocks on the door of a shrine where the high priestess resides, and the door opens, revealing the high priestess of Azure Palace, who warmly welcomes Takumi, Alan, and Elena, and all three of them are left absolutely mesmerized by her presence. And at the start of the next episode, the priestess of Azure Palace, Maiko Heim, welcomes Takumi, Alan, and Elena into their underwater kingdom, and seeing her, Alan and Elena immediately say she's so pretty, and the priestess says, "Thank you for coming here to help us. The water god's retainer told us you were the one who could solve our problem." And right then, Milena mentions that Mr. Takumi already resolved the issue with that ship, and now some people have gone to inspect the cave. Hearing this makes the priestess incredibly happy, but then Takumi asks, "By the way, who exactly is this retainer of the water god?" And the priestess explains that only she and this old man here know that the retainer spoke to them directly, and she adds that they were also told Takumi is an incredibly kind-hearted person. So Takumi says, "Please don't praise me so much." And then this old man, Guldo, says, "Mr. Takumi is getting all shy hearing your praise." And the priestess insists, "But I'm being completely genuine." And then Guldo launches into a lecture about proper etiquette when meeting someone for the first time, prompting the priestess to apologize to Takumi, explaining that Guldo is the leader of the mermen living here. And we also learn that the role of high priestess is the highest position in their society, since high priestesses can actually communicate directly with the gods, which is why a new high priestess gets chosen each generation. Though being high priestess doesn't necessarily mean you're incredibly powerful, it simply means you're extremely pure-hearted. But Maiko Heim doesn't seem too thrilled about carrying such a massive responsibility, and then she says, "I really should reward you for your help." And Takumi tries to refuse, but she absolutely insists. So Takumi thinks about what he could possibly ask for as a reward, and then he remembers his water spells are still pretty weak. So he asks, "Could you teach us how to properly use water magic? We already have the skills for it, but we just can't seem to use them effectively." And Guldo offers to teach them himself. But Maiko Heim says, "That's hardly a proper reward. You need to give them something better." And right then Milena whispers something into the priestess's ear, and Maiko Heim turns to Takumi and suggests, "How about we give you something we don't really need ourselves, but would be incredibly valuable to you three?" And she leads them into a cave filled with all sorts of items, like rock shell, a stone that can be crushed into a powder used as a cleaning agent, healing seaweed used for treating wounds, and various other things. And then Alan and Elena come running back holding some marble-like balls, which turn out to be pearls of different colors. And this entire place is basically the mermaid's junk pile, meaning all these gorgeous pearls are essentially worthless rocks to them. So Takumi explains that these are actually incredibly valuable gemstones to humans. But Maiko Heim says, "To us these stones hold zero value, but the retainer told us humans find them very attractive." And right then Alan and Elena start happily playing with these pearls, and Takumi ends up storing all these pearls and other items into his inventory, and the three of them spend the night at Azure Palace, treated to an incredibly delicious feast, along with music and dancing performed just for them. And watching all this reminds Takumi of a story from his own world, where a mermaid takes care of a man in a similar way and eventually turns him old. But then Takumi thinks, by the time I actually grow old, these two kids will already be all grown up themselves, so there's no way that's happening anytime soon. And after that, the three of them retire to their room, admiring the beautiful underwater view outside, which looks exactly like a giant aquarium. And Takumi points out the names of various fish to the kids, though honestly he doesn't know all of them himself. And in the next scene we see the three of them back on land with Maiko Heim and Guldo, since Guldo has come to teach them water magic, and he explains there are two ways to use water magic: manipulating and creating. Wind and earth magic can only be manipulated, but fire and water magic need to be created first. And this whole lecture completely goes over Alan and Elena's heads, but Guldo continues, using water magic is much easier near actual water. So Takumi gives it a try and effortlessly creates a water pillar, and then Guldo teaches Alan and Elena about the flow of magical power within their bodies. Since neither of them has ever used magic before, and Guldo does something near their hands, awakening the flow of magic inside their bodies. Everyone has magical power flowing through them, and that's exactly what lets us use magic, but the kids still don't quite get it. So Takumi demonstrates himself, feeling the magic flow through his own body, and right after that Alan and Elena start feeling that same magical flow within themselves too. And then Guldo takes some water in his palm and shapes it into a form, telling the kids to do the same. This is called controlling magic, and this is the very first skill Alan and Elena need to practice. And surprisingly, they pick it up incredibly fast, impressing Mikoheim, since getting it right on the very first try is usually really difficult, and hearing them praised makes Takumi happy too. Then Guldo tells Takumi to attack that rock over there with a water ball, and Takumi creates a water ball and shatters the rock completely, and then Alan and Elena create their own water balls too, smashing apart another rock, celebrating happily. But Guldo is absolutely stunned watching how fast these two kids are learning, and they continue practicing like this well into the evening. But suddenly, for no clear reason, Alan and Elena cling tightly to Takumi in fear, and the very next moment, something absolutely massive emerges from the ocean. Meanwhile, we cut to the water god Sil, standing before his head retainer Maya, who tells him she's figured out exactly what's troubling the mermaid village. Sil says, yes, a massive ship has been blocking access to an important cave of theirs, and that's exactly why Maya told those mermaids Takumi could solve their problem through the Oracle, a method that lets gods and their retainers communicate with the human world. And here Sil is scolding Maya, since she's causing Takumi unnecessary trouble again. Takumi has already done so much for us. How long do we intend to keep leaning on him for help? This time I'll let it slide, but if you pull something like this again, it won't end well for you. And after scolding Maya, Sil sips his tea, still visibly irritated with her. Then Sil says, I wonder if bringing Takumi into this world was actually a mistake. And his servant reassures him, you made absolutely no mistake bringing Mr. Takumi here. And hearing that makes Sil genuinely happy. But then the servant adds, though it seems Takumi and those kids might be facing some kind of danger right now. And meanwhile, back in the ocean, an enormous dragon emerges from the depth, and Takumi realizes this is a leviathan, a retainer of the water god. And Takumi wonders if it's about to attack them. But then the dragons speak. I sensed something incredibly strange. That's why I came here. You must be a retainer of the wind god, and these two children must be children of the water god. Takumi asks, do you know these two? And the dragon explains, when these two kids were born, I was given the responsibility of taking care of them, but I couldn't do it because if I had brought them into a human settlement, well, you can imagine what would have happened. But fate has brought us back together now, and I want to help you by forming a contract with you. So give me a name, and after Takumi names this dragon, he'll gain the power to summon it whenever needed. So Takumi names him Kaiser, and the dragon accepts that name completely, saying, I'll call you Takumi from now on. By the way, these two kids seem to have grown quite fond of you. And Takumi says, yes, I'm basically like a big brother to them. But then Kaiser tells the kids, come with me. You two are old enough now to live with me without any trouble. And he tells Takumi, I could protect them far better than you could. But both kids flatly refuse to go with him. And seeing this, Kaiser says, so you two don't want to leave your big brother's side. And they both say, yeah, and Kaiser says, all right then, the bond between you three runs incredibly deep. Forgive my rudeness, I just wanted to see how much these kids truly love you. Hearing that, Takumi says, Kaiser, it's true that I'm weaker than you, but no matter what happens, I will never abandon these two. And Kaiser says, understood, but whenever you need my help, just call for me, since you haven't been in this world for very long. And Kaiser knows Takumi actually came from another world entirely, and Takumi can now communicate with Kaiser through telepathy whenever he wants. And Kaiser gives Takumi one of his own scales, and as long as Takumi keeps this scale with him, Kaiser will always know exactly where he is. And by the way, if you'd like, I can give you all a ride. And hearing that, Alan and Elena get super excited. And next we see all three of them riding on Kaiser's back as he swims through the ocean, and everyone gets to enjoy this stunning underwater world alongside them. And taking in this view, Takumi remembers Kaiser's earlier words about how he could take better care of these kids kids than Takumi could. But then Takumi just pulls both of them closer to himself, and after that the three of them wave Kaiser goodbye. And once he's gone, Alan and Elena say how much fun that trip was, holding onto Takumi's hands, saying we're hungry, let's go eat something. And hearing that, Takumi forgets all his worries and just smiles. And their journey continues on just like this. At the start of episode 8, Takumi, Alan, and Elena return to Azure Palace, and the moment the kids mention Kaiser, Takumi decides not to reveal that detail to Maiko Haim and Milena, instead saying they rode here on a giant fish, and mentions how beautiful the view was during their trip. And hearing all this, Maiko Haim says, "You three must be exhausted. Please rest for a while," but Takumi says, "Sorry, but it's actually time for us to head out now. Thank you so much for taking such good care of us." And hearing that, both girls look sad at first, but then Maiko Haim says, "You have many other important things to do, so we won't hold you back any longer." But before they leave, Maiko Haim gives them a box as a parting gift, and Takumi worries this box might turn him old, but it actually just contains lunch. And after accepting the box, the three of them say their goodbyes and head out. But along the way, they run into a dangerous crab, which the kids easily defeat. And continuing on, the three of them stumble upon a strange-looking spot and realize this is actually a labyrinth, so they decide to explore it. And deep inside, they reach a small pond leading to a dry area, along with a teleportation device, and Takumi pulls the kids out of the water, discovering this is the 53rd labyrinth, a mid-rank labyrinth with 13 floors, and Alan and Elena are super excited to explore it. So Takumi agrees, saying they'll clear this labyrinth and then head straight back to town, and they'll teleport out from the 10th floor, since that floor has a teleportation device too. But before heading in, why not have a little snack first, since Maiko Haim packed some incredibly delicious food in that box. And after eating, they arrive at the labyrinth's first floor, immediately running into poisonous frogs. And since these frogs are venomous, all three of them attack with magic from a distance, Takumi taking one out instantly with an air shot. But the kids' water balls miss the other two frogs completely. So Takumi encouraged them, don't get discouraged, try again, and on their next attempt they successfully take down both frogs, earning a potion as a reward. Then they reach the second floor, where a particular wall looks a bit odd to Takumi, and the moment he places his hand on it, a hidden passage opens up, leading them to a treasure box, which turns out to contain some type of edible fish. So Takumi stores it away for later, and they find yet another treasure box here too, this one containing dried fish. And Takumi tells the kids these can make for some really great meals, and finding all these treats gets even Takumi excited to keep exploring this labyrinth. And they continue collecting all kinds of seafood from various treasure boxes, and eventually reach the 6th floor. But since it's getting late, Takumi suggests they rest here for the night, and he starts thinking about what to cook for dinner, deciding on a dish made with crab and dried fish, which comes together quickly, and all three of them thoroughly enjoy the meal, Alan, Elena, and Takumi all loving the flavor, after which they sleep inside a protective barrier, and the next day they reach the 6th floor, running into an impact shell, a monster that can create shockwaves capable of causing serious injury. So Alan and Elena attack it from a safe distance using their water balls, cracking its shell open in a single hit, and impressed by their strength, Takumi checks their status, and it turns out their stats have gotten a massive boost. Their titles now read Children of the Water God, and both of their stats are exactly identical, level 25 each, which honestly worries Takumi a little, since he is only level 27 himself, meaning if this keeps up, these two are going to overtake him really soon. But then Takumi notices they got a party cracker from that monster, and he explains to them that pulling its string will make an incredibly loud noise. So they decide to try it out, and the moment they pull the string, the sound is so shockingly loud that it actually scares both of them, and continuing forward, they run into another impact shell, and this time Alan and Elena, still annoyed from getting startled earlier, attack it in frustration and take it down, but getting another party cracker from it makes them nervous again, so Takumi just keeps it for himself, thinking it might come in handy someday. And eventually, they reach the 10th floor, where they'll encounter a boss, so Takumi opens the door to this floor, revealing a small bridge surrounding surrounded entirely by water, and Alan and Elena are having a great time crossing this bridge. But suddenly Takumi senses a monster nearby, and the very next moment, a swarm of arrowfish emerges from the water, and all three of them fight back using their respective magic, eventually defeating every single arrowfish. And while the kids barely feel tired, Takumi is completely exhausted, and after this fight, a new pathway opens up in front of them. And Takumi notices they've collected quite a few items from these arrowfish, storing them all in his inventory. But then the kids tell Takumi they can see something underwater. So Takumi first checks to make sure there's no monster lurking down there, and the three of them dive in, discovering another treasure box. This one containing a mermaid bracelet, which is exactly what's letting them breathe underwater right now. And with this extra bracelet, they can even summon Jewel and Feet underwater too. And after that, they reach the room housing the teleportation device, which will take them straight back to the first floor. And in the next scene, we see the three of them in the town of Bailey. And Takumi remembers Ferris gave them a letter meant for the provincial lord, which he still needs to deliver. But before that, the three of them decide to explore the town a bit, and they catch an incredibly delicious smell wafting through the air. So Takumi stops at a food stall where the vendor explains this dish is really tasty, quite salty though, but Takumi says he'll add his own flavor to it, and he starts grilling it his own way, then serves it to Alan and Elena, who absolutely love the taste, and the vendor is amazed too, asking what exactly Takumi mixed into it, and Takumi explains it's called soy sauce, made from the sap of a special tree, and he lets the vendor try it too, and the man gets completely lost in the flavor, praising it loudly, which draws a crowd wanting to buy this dish immediately. So Alan and Elena protest, saying they won't share theirs, but the vendor asks Takumi if he could sell him some soy sauce along with a bit of butter, and Takumi agrees. And as everyone tries this dish, they can't get enough of it, forming a massive line, and the vendor completely sells out of his stock. And afterward, he asks Takumi if he could sell this exact dish at his own shop using Takumi's idea, and Takumi says, sure, but you'll have to source the soy sauce yourself, and hearing that the man happily rushes off to find some, leaving the three of them a bit surprised by his enthusiasm. And after that, they visit a blacksmith shop, since Takumi wants to get that scale Kaiser gave him polished. But the moment the shopkeeper sees this item, he's completely stunned. So Takumi says, I received this as a gift from someone, and the man exclaims, who on earth gives away something this valuable as a gift? But Takumi just says he can't reveal that, and asks if the man can drill a hole in it, and the man says, if I do that, this thing is going to break. But then he calls over a young man, Rudy, asking if he can craft an ornament out of it. But the moment this young man realizes it's actually a water dragon's scale, he's just as shocked, and Takumi says he wants to make a pendant out of this scale. So Rudy starts figuring out the best shape for it, eventually showing Takumi a design that all three of them really like. But Rudy explains that to craft a pendant in this shape, he'll need a special material capable of cutting through this scale, something like mithril. And Takumi asks if he already has that material or if he needs to bring it himself, and it turns out the shopkeeper actually has mithril. But Takumi asks if there's anything else besides a chain that could be used, and Rudy suggests mithril spider thread would work best, and Takumi wonders if this is the same item Sil gave him earlier, and he shows it to Rudy, who's completely floored seeing it. And Rudy's shocked reaction draws over the shop's boss, who's equally stunned, since this is an incredibly rare item, and Takumi explains he wants 3 of these pendants made, one for himself and one each for Alan and Elena, so they'll always stay protected. And Rudy suggests that since he's making 3 pendants, each one should have a slightly different design. So Takumi asks Alan and Elena what kind of design they'd like. Elena says something cute, but Alan doesn't really have a preference, so Takumi leaves that decision to Rudy, and just as Rudy's about to start working, Takumi asks if he could also craft some armor if given the right material, and he shows them the evil viper hide, which completely shatters the boss's composure, and the same thing happens to Rudy. So Takumi reveals he's actually a Ranka adventurer, which explains to the boss exactly how Takumi has access to so many rare items, and Takumi specifies what he wants made: gloves for handling items, a breastplate, and a gauntlet. And he wants this gauntlet specifically because of Bolt, since Bolt's claws are extremely sharp. But Alan says he wants one too, so he can also have Bolt sit on his hand, and Takumi agrees to that. And after placing their orders, the 3 of them head out, arriving at a church where Sil is already waiting to talk to Takumi, and seeing Takumi makes Sil incredibly happy. And now Takumi tells him, "I've learned something about Alan and Elena. They're actually children of the water god." And Sil apologizes for not telling Takumi this earlier, but Takumi says, "No need to apologize, I just want to know one thing. Where exactly is their father?" And finally we're shown a statue of a god, presumably the water god himself. Episode 9 begins with the very same question Takumi asks. Exactly what kind of god is the water god, Alan and Elena's father? And along with that, Takumi thinks, if the water god ever takes these two kids away with him, I'm really going to miss them badly. But then suddenly Sil congratulates Takumi because he's officially become one of Sil's true disciples now. Any disciple only becomes a true disciple of a god once they're given a special responsibility. And this responsibility isn't a task exactly, it's more of a symbol, like Sil's own symbol is wind. So hearing this, Takumi asks, "So what's my symbol then?" And Sil says, "Nurturing and education." And this is exactly because Takumi has been taking such wonderful care of Alan and Elena. But Takumi says, "Wait, aren't I supposed to be your Windcutter disciple?" So Sil explains that nurturing and education actually falls under the domain of the creator goddess Maria Nola, meaning Takumi has received the blessing of Maria Nola herself. And this makes poor Sil a bit frustrated, wondering why his own disciple doesn't even have a wind-related symbol. And Takumi says, "Well, what can you really do about it now, since this was the creator goddess's own choice? So what should I do going forward?" And Sil says, "Just keep doing exactly what you've been doing, taking good care of these kids. By the way, the fire god Salamandal has sent you some items too, because Takumi has been improving cooking here in this world. Like in the kingdom of Siren, he invented a brand new bread dish at that bakery, and then in Bailey he improved the taste of a seafood dish too. And both of these dishes have become incredibly popular among the people of this world. And the cooking in this world, Edia, hasn't changed for centuries, staying exactly the same as it always was. But you've come along and started changing things, which has made the fire god extremely pleased with you. Since cooking falls entirely under the fire god's domain, and along with several items, the fire god has also decided to give Takumi a fire elemental beast and some fire magic skills. And hearing this makes Takumi really happy, since he'll finally be able to use fire magic too, given that wind and water magic don't work well against many monsters. But hearing all this makes Sil get annoyed again, and after that Takumi bids Sil farewell and heads out to find an inn to stay at in this town. Meanwhile, Sil is still stuck thinking about Takumi's question about where exactly Alan and Elena's father actually is, and poor Sil starts getting genuinely anxious about it, because he can't exactly tell Takumi that the water god got a girl from Edia pregnant, and she gave birth to twins, and during all that time the water god was off having fun with other women. And even now Sil himself has no idea where the water god actually is. But then the fire god Salamandal shows up and asks, "Hey Sil, did you give that boy the items I sent?" And Sil says, "His name is Takumi, and yes, I gave him the items. He's really excited hearing about your fire magic, so please give him some good skills." And Salamandal says, "Of course, in fact I've already given him my very best contracted beast." And seeing Salamandal this excited, Sil says, "Whenever you're this happy, something's definitely about to go wrong. I really hope your contracted beast doesn't cause Takumi any trouble." Meanwhile, we see Alan and Elena playing in the ocean with Feet and Jewel, while Takumi watches them play alongside Bolt, though Bolt isn't too thrilled playing with kids since he's a lot more mature. But then Alan and Elena splash water onto Takumi, putting him in a playful mood too, and he uses his water magic to send Alan and Elena flying through the water, which they absolutely love, and Takumi keeps doing this, enjoying himself too. But suddenly a massive burst of fire erupts behind him, like a volcano just exploded, and turning around, Takumi sees an enormous lion standing there. So he uses his appraisal skill and discovers this is Scarlet King Leo, his own contracted beast, and Takumi remembers exactly what Sil told him. So this must be my contracted beast sent by the fire god, and this lion is so massive that even its smallest roar sounds absolutely terrifying, and it seems he doesn't have telepathy yet. But then Alan and Elena ask what his name is. So Takumi names him Vector, and once given a name, this lion starts rubbing up against Takumi affectionately, meaning as scary as this lion looks, he's actually just as adorable. But given his massive size, Takumi asks him to shrink down, and even in his smaller form Vector is still quite large, and Alan and Elena immediately climb onto him, and all three of them introduce themselves to Vector, saying nice to meet you, and Takumi tells everyone Vector is our friend now, and everyone agrees. And then they all start playing a game, where Alan and Elena throw a ball and Jewel fetches it, and when it's Vector's turn, he grabs something entirely different. Wait, that's a coconut, ignoring the actual ball completely, and then he brings something else along with him, and Takumi watches curiously to see what he's carrying, and he's shocked to see Vector has brought back an actual person, and Takumi worries for a second that Vector might be planning to eat her, but he realizes she's just sleeping peacefully, so Takumi checks her status, discovering her name is Vivian, and she's a demon vampire. And in this world, demons are treated just like any other race. They're not inherently evil, and Vector simply found this girl sleeping in some bush, so he brought her here. But Takumi tells him, you shouldn't do things like this, Vector, and Vector nearly burst into tears hearing that. So Takumi reassures him he's not upset with him, but then the girl says, I'm hungry, prompting Alan and Elena to say, we're hungry too. So Takumi cooks up some food for everyone, and the moment she hears the word food, this girl suddenly wakes up, watching everyone eat with her mouth practically watering. So Takumi brings some food over for her too, and seeing it makes her incredibly happy, though she starts eating like an absolute animal, which makes Alan and Elena start copying her exact eating style. And Takumi asks her, you probably fainted from hunger, what happened to you? And after completely demolishing her food, she introduces herself, Vivian, you can call me Vivi, and the three of them introduce themselves too. But then Vivi says, the food you fed me was incredibly delicious. So Takumi explains these are rice balls, made from rice, and where he's from, people eat this all the time. Hearing that leaves her genuinely amazed, saying, I never knew rice could be turned into such an amazing dish. You're such a great cook, big brother. By the way, are you these kids' father? And Takumi says, I'm their older brother, and she says, I love learning other people's secrets. Since I'm actually a spy, I was heading toward the town of Elbear, but I forgot to buy any food along the way, so I've been surviving on wild fruits and hunted animals in the forest, but I hadn't found anything for days, which is why I fainted near the ocean. Anyway, I need to report back on my mission soon. I was assigned to watch a certain man, given this task by his fiancée, and during my mission, I discovered this man is keeping an ordinary girl at his mansion, and to uncover the truth, I've been working there disguised as a maid. But now, it's time for me to go, and as thanks for the food, please take these to potions made from a vampire's aphrodisiac, one for men and one for women, both designed to make someone feel aroused. And right then Alan and Elena ask, can we try drinking that? And Takumi immediately says, absolutely not, and after that Vivi heads off. But then the kids ask Takumi, what exactly is a father? And they both start staring at him intently, and Takumi thinks to himself, oh right, these two have no idea what a family actually is, since from the very start they've always treated Takumi as their big brother, and they've probably picked up the meaning of big brother just from how the townspeople refer to him. For these two, Takumi is simply their big brother, Alan and Elena's big brother, and Elena is Alan's little sister. They understand all this, but they have no concept of what a family actually means. So Takumi explains, in a family, first there's a mom and a dad, and children are born from the two of them, but this concept is genuinely hard for the kids to grasp, though they do understand that everyone is born from parents, and that being born is an incredibly wonderful thing. And hearing that, the two of them run off to play with everyone else. But Takumi thinks to himself, they didn't ask me where their own parents are, maybe not today, but someday they definitely will ask that question. And the next day, the three of them head to the Bailey Town Guild to find a quest, and Takumi approaches the receptionist to inquire about available quests, but first she checks their guild cards, and she's shocked to see Takumi holds rank A, and even more shocked to learn he's discovered a brand new labyrinth, the underwater one they explored called Saja Nami, and Takumi explains they just stumbled upon it while playing in the ocean, and she says, discovering a new labyrinth is a massive deal, and this immediately draws the attention of everyone around them, which makes poor Alan and Elena nervous. And then we see the guild master apologizing on behalf of this receptionist for her thoughtless behavior, and by the way, this girl's name is Karen, and after that the guild master informs Takumi that he needs to report this new labyrinth to the provincial lord, which will trigger an official investigation. So Takumi explains everything about the labyrinth. It's the 53rd undiscovered labyrinth named Sajanami, and here's its location. It's underwater, and being underwater is exactly why nobody had discovered it until now. Takumi continues, explaining you'll need to hold your breath and dive 50 meters down to find its entrance. But the guild master asks, what were you all doing underwater in the first place? And Takumi obviously can't reveal the whole mermaid village and magical device situation. So he simply says, I can hold my breath for 15 minutes, and Karen readily accepts that explanation. But then the kids get hungry, so Takumi says, I should probably head out now. But the guild master says, tomorrow you'll need to accompany me to meet the provincial lord. And the next scene shows us the provincial lord of Bailey, Kedrick Regner. Isaac probably already told you about me. And remember, Isaac had given Takumi a letter meant for the lord of Bailey, and here Takumi learns that Isaac is actually Kedrick's younger brother, which is genuinely confusing for Takumi to process, so he says, maybe I should call you Lord Kedrick, and Kedrick says, oh no, Mr. Kedrick will do just fine. But then Alan and Elena say, he looks exactly like that man who told us we could beat up that other guy. And here they're talking about poor Glenn Wald, who's had quite the complicated history with Alan and Elena. But since all this was said in Takumi's original language, Kedrick misunderstands completely, thinking Isaac told these kids to beat him up specifically. So Takumi clarifies, no, that's not what's happening at all. But the kids' comments keep making the situation more confusing. So Takumi explains everything properly, clarifying they're actually talking about Glenn Wald here. At the start of episode 10, everyone sits down together, and Takumi explains to Mr. Kedrick exactly how he discovered the Sajanami labyrinth, which makes Kedrick genuinely thrilled, since a labyrinth being discovered within his domain is a huge deal, because labyrinths are a massive source of income in this world, since adventurers exploring labyrinths buy new weapons, stay at hotels, and eat at restaurants, generating significant revenue for the kingdom, and the items they find get sold to the guild, which then sells them to merchants, benefiting the guild too. And we also learn that the kingdom of Gawaya has discovered a total of 5 labyrinths so far, and after that Takumi looks at this exact list, realizing he actually knows about labyrinths that haven't even been discovered yet, meaning he'll need to be extremely careful from now on, or he might accidentally reveal yet another undiscovered labyrinth to the world. But then as Takumi picks up his tea to drink, he senses something odd, and we learn that Syl has actually been keeping an eye on Takumi through this very tea. And after that, Takumi asks Kedrick how much of the labyrinth has been investigated so far, and he says only a small portion of the first floor, since investigators are struggling to even get inside. But Kedrick has provided them with magical devices to help. They're not exactly like the bracelets Takumi has, but they create an airflow that lets people breathe for a limited time. And by the way, whoever discovers a labyrinth within a kingdom receives a reward from that kingdom. So Takumi asks, will everyone find out that I'm the one who discovered it? And Kedrick says, no, we never publicly reveal who discovered a labyrinth, but if people did find out, you'd become incredibly famous. So Takumi says, I just want to live a normal, quiet life. But Kedrick makes it clear that Takumi will have to accept his reward regardless, and after gathering all the information he needs, this man leaves. But then Kedrick asks, I heard there was some trouble at the guild yesterday, and the man says, please forgive us. Shouting out an adventurer's personal information is strictly against our rules, so we sincerely apologize, Mr. Takumi. And remember, Karen had loudly announced Takumi's guild card details in front of everyone. So Takumi says, that girl already apologized to me. It's fine. But Mr. Kedrick warns, this time it's fine. But make sure something like this never happens again. And the man agrees before leaving. And then Kedrick apologizes to Takumi for all the trouble he's faced since arriving in this town, saying, my brother already told me you'd be coming, but you took longer than expected, which had me genuinely worried. By the way, have you enjoyed exploring the city? And Alan and Elena say they had a blast at the beach. And right then a butler announces lunch is ready, Lord Kedrick. So Kedrick invites Takumi to join them for lunch too, and though Takumi was originally planning to head out, Kedrick insists on inviting him to eat, and they all move to the dining hall, which looks absolutely stunning, and Kedrick introduces Takumi to his wife Levi, along with his two sons, the older one Theodore and the younger one Lettuce, and they also have a daughter, though she's still very little. And after that, Alan and Elena introduce themselves too, but Takumi notices both of them acting unusually shy since neither of them has ever interacted with kids their own age before. So Takumi tells Theodore and Lettuce, forgive them, they're both a bit shy, and both boys say no worries at all, and then everyone starts eating, and all three of them absolutely love the food. And after the meal, Kedrick says, Isaac told me some really interesting things about you. Apparently in Siren you invented brand new types of bread that have become incredibly popular, things like cream bread and red bean buns. Would you be willing to share these recipes with us? And I'll happily compensate you in return. And Takumi says, that won't be necessary. Alan and Elena absolutely love that cream bread, so I was actually thinking about having some bakers here in Bailey make it for them too. But then Alan and Elena say, we want jelly, prompting everyone to ask, what exactly is jelly? And Takumi explains, it's a sweet snack you can enjoy after a meal. Hearing this, Kedrick asks if they could try some too, and Takumi says it uses some rather unusual ingredients, so it might not suit the taste of nobles like yourselves, but Kedrick insists on trying it anyway, though Takumi worries a bit about feeding them food from another world. But then we see Kedrick, his kids, and his wife absolutely loving this jelly, and everyone starts guessing what ingredients went into it, fruit or milk perhaps, and when they finally ask Takumi directly, Alan and Elena reveal it's made from slime, which completely shocks everyone. And we learn that when the three of them explored the Earth Labyrinth earlier, Alan and Elena had captured a bunch of slime, and since slimes aren't harmful to humans, seeing so many of them gave Takumi the idea of turning them into a jelly-like snack, so he asked the kids if they wanted to try jelly, and they said yes, and using a bit of magic on these slime, Takumi transformed them into this jelly, and once the three of them tasted it, they were absolutely delighted. And hearing all this, Kedrick asks if Isaac has tried this dish yet, and Takumi says, not yet, and this gives Kedrick the perfect opportunity to get back at his brother, since Isaac had previously teased Kedrick about how amazing Takumi's cream bread was, so now Kedrick decides to return the favor, telling Takumi, if you don't mind, I'd love to purchase this recipe from you, and Takumi has no problem with that. So Kedrick tells his butler to gather some slimes, but the butler explains that getting slimes on such short notice would be quite difficult, since slimes are extremely low-rank monsters that adventurers usually don't even bother with. And hearing this gives Kedrick an idea, maybe we should open our own slime farm, which genuinely surprises Takumi. But then Kedrick says, I'd like you to stay at our residence for as long as you're in this kingdom, and Takumi mentions he's already booked a room at an inn, so Kedrick says, I'll have that cancelled right away, and Takumi finds himself unable to refuse Kedrick's persistence. But even after all this conversation, Alan and Elena are still struggling to talk comfortably with Theodore and Lettuce, so the boys say, Alan, Elena, we'll play tons of games together from now on, and both kids happily agree. That night the three of them stay in a room at Kedrick's residence, and Alan and Elena absolutely love bouncing on the soft mattress. The next morning they meet Kedrick, who's reading a reply letter he sent to Isaac the previous day, and letters can travel this fast because the guild has a teleportation device that, while it can't teleport people, can definitely teleport small objects instantly. And the moment Kedrick's letter arrived, Isaac immediately sent back a reply, and here Kedrick has taken his revenge, praising Takumi's jelly dish extensively in his letter, describing exactly how delicious it was. Hearing this, Takumi wonders if these two brothers just constantly prank each other. But then Kedrick says that full Isaac used take even the smallest things way too seriously, but ever since joining the Knights, he's really improved himself a lot. Hearing this, Takumi understands that Kedrick genuinely loves his younger brother deeply, and probably looked after him a lot as kids, while also teasing him constantly. And in that same way, Isaac probably takes his frustrations out on others too. But then Takumi notices Alan and Elena swinging on Kedrick's chair. Meanwhile, back in Siren, Isaac is reading his brother's letter, and Wald walks up asking what he's reading so intently, and Isaac explains he's reading a letter his brother just sent him. And seeing Isaac this calm makes Wald suspicious, wondering if this is some kind of imposter, so Isaac says, stop talking nonsense. Takumi and those kids have already reached the city of Bailey, and Wald Wald is shocked hearing how quickly Takumi made it there with the kids. So Wald asks what the letter actually says, and Isaac explains. A brand new labyrinth has been discovered in Bailey, a mid-rank water-type labyrinth discovered by none other than Takumi, and this leaves Wald absolutely stunned. He found a labyrinth that easily, Isaac continues, and now my brother needs to report this to the kingdom, and this report will also need to include information about the person who discovered it, meaning Takumi is going to have to meet the king too. And by the way, Isaac and Wald had already reported their earlier findings about the Forest of Gaia and the slave trading incident to the king, and if all this information becomes public, everyone's going to be talking non-stop about Takumi, and any jealous, malicious person could potentially target him because of it. But I doubt Takumi is planning to stay in that kingdom for very long, and if Takumi ever left without telling anyone, we'd be losing an incredibly skilled ally. Isaac continues, and beyond all this, the most troubling part is jelly, this brand new dish Takumi created, and my brother is currently enjoying it right now, and he's now going to start selling this new dish with Takumi's permission. Hearing all this leaves Wald absolutely floored, wondering just what exactly Takumi is going to accomplish next. Meanwhile, back in Bailey, we see the three of them out at the marketplace, and Kedrick has come out in disguise along with his kids and butler, bringing Takumi to try a dish that's been getting incredibly popular lately. And then we see Theodore and Lettuce walking forward and taking their father's hand, and the moment Alan and Elena notice this, they look over at Takumi, and understanding exactly what they want, Takumi extends his hands toward them, and Alan and Elena eagerly grab hold of them, and then they all reach the spot selling this delicious dish. But there's an enormous crowd here, and Kedrick explains this popular dish is made from shellfish cooked with a unique ingredient called soy sauce, and hearing that, Takumi immediately understands exactly what dish this is. And then we see that same vendor Takumi taught to mix shellfish with soy sauce, and he immediately spots Takumi, Alan, and Elena. Hey, you three don't need to wait in line at all. You're the one who taught me how to make this in the first place. Are these three with you? Come on, don't be shy. Come right this way. And in the next scene, we see everyone sitting together, and Kedrick has now learned this dish was also created thanks to Takumi, and everyone finds the taste absolutely incredible. So Kedrick asks Takumi what exactly this soy sauce is, and Takumi explains it's made from the roots of a tree called kokuichi found inside labyrinths. And then Alan and Elena say they want more food, so Takumi says, sure, eat as much as you want. And after that, we're introduced to a trading company called Fiji, which deals in all sorts of items found inside Labyrinth, one of the biggest shops in the entire kingdom of Gawaya. And here Mr. Kedrick has come to discuss some business with the branch owner, and while he handles that conversation, Alan, Elena, and Takumi wait outside along with Theodore and Lettuce, and while wandering around, they browse various food items, like red beans used for making red bean buns. And when Takumi explains this to Theodore and Lettuce, both boys are genuinely amazed learning about it, and then Kedrick rejoins them, and Takumi notices a bag in Kedrick's hand bearing a very familiar looking symbol, and Takumi tries to remember where exactly he's seen this symbol before, and then it hits him, this is the exact symbol that was on that sunken ship he was called to remove from the mermaid village. And with that, this episode comes to an end. Episode 11 begins with Takumi recalling that sunken ship the moment he spots that same symbol on Kedrick's back. So he asks Kedrick, have you heard of the Dyed Line? And Kedrick says, the Dyed Line, that's the name of one of your merchant ships, isn't it? And the man standing beside him confirms, yes, there was an explosion on it. But then Takumi reveals he's actually recovered that ship, discovering it underwater, leaving this merchant completely confused, especially since that ship was massive. And Takumi explains he's been storing it in his inventory this whole time, and he's decided to return this ship to its rightful owner, along with all the cargo it was carrying. Hearing this, Kedrick asks if Takumi wants anything in exchange, and Takumi says no, which genuinely shocks both Kedrick and this merchant, because in this world, whatever item you find becomes your own property, whatever it may be, though stealing is obviously a completely different matter. And if you find someone's belongings and that person wants it back, they're expected to offer something in return. And here the merchant explains that the large fairy stone powering this ship is incredibly valuable, and this ship actually sank because a part of its structure was weak, letting water flood in. But that fairy stone should be perfectly intact, and once he recovers it, this merchant will be able to recoup all his losses. And after that, the merchant asks Takumi to follow him to where he can pull the ship back out. So Takumi tells Alan and Elena that he's returning the ship they found in the mermaid village back to its rightful owner, and they ask why he's giving it back. So Takumi asks them, if the person walking in front of you accidentally drops something, what would you to do? And they say, we'd pick it up and give it back to them. And Takumi says, that's exactly what I'm doing right now, returning this ship to its real owner. And this shows just how well Takumi is instilling good values into these two kids. And then we see Takumi pulling this ship out of his inventory at a massive pool-like area. And the moment the merchant sees it, he instantly recognizes it as his own ship, and he thanks Takumi profusely for this. And this is how Takumi ends up forming a genuine friendship with the owner of Fiji Trading Company. And this merchant shows Takumi some of his merchandise, and Takumi's eyes land on some coffee bean, reminding him of something Syl once told him, that you can't eat these beans directly, but you can boil them in water and drink that liquid, meaning these beans can be used to brew coffee. So Takumi buys a good amount of these beans, and then his eyes catch some spices, and we learn that in this world spices are typically used for making medicine. But some of these ingredient names sound exactly the same as ones from Takumi's own world, so he buys those two, planning to use them to make curry, and Takumi genuinely can't wait to eat curry again. And Alan and Elena are equally excited to try it. Once they return home, Takumi gets ready to cook, first laying out all the ingredients on a table, cutting the vegetables into small pieces, then frying the orc meat properly, and he wants to add ketchup and Worcestershire sauce. But those don't exist in this world, so he substitutes them with fruit and honey instead, mixing everything together and letting it simmer. But simmering takes a long time, so Takumi decides to use a special magic spell that speeds up time for inanimate objects aging, and just like that, the curry is ready almost instantly. And after tasting it himself, Takumi lets Alan and Elena try it too, and they absolutely love it. But then all the mansion's servants and chefs start showing up, drawn by the smell of curry, and right then Kedrick walks in asking what this is, and Takumi explains this is a dish from his homeland called curry. But Kedrick is shocked to learn that medicinal herbs are used to make it, and after that everyone gets to taste the curry. And Takumi has also made bread which Alan and Elena are thoroughly enjoying, along with plenty of curry rice for everyone in the mansion to try. And Takumi himself eats some bread too. And right then Theodore praises Takumi's cooking. Genuinely, Mr. Takumi, you're absolutely amazing. And Alan and Elena chime in too, saying yes, Taku is incredibly amazing. But then Kedrick, who's been quiet for a while, stands up and says, Takumi, this curry dish of yours is absolutely fabulous. And he starts showering endless praise on Takumi's cooking, making Takumi worry he might have made the curry too spicy. But then Kedrick's master chef walks into the dining hall after tasting this dish, walking straight up to Takumi and heaping praise onto this curry. I've been cooking for years, but I've never tasted anything this incredible in my entire life. Please, make me your disciple. Takumi tries to politely decline, but this chef pleads, why am I not worthy enough? So Kedrick steps in, saying, Chef Nyan, Takumi isn't a professional cook. He's an adventurer, so he can't take you on as his disciple, but I completely understand how you feel. Takumi has created so many amazing and unique dishes. I honestly think you should consider becoming a chef yourself, Takumi. And right then Alan and Elena ask, are you becoming a cook now? And Takumi says, no, not really. And after that we see Takumi, Alan, Elena, Theodore, and Lettuce all sitting together chatting, with Theodore and Lettuce asking Takumi about the different types of monsters he's fought so far. And Takumi learns these two boys absolutely love hearing adventure stories. So Takumi starts sharing tales, like how in Siren, knights and adventurers teamed up to form a force to fight off the forest monsters, and how they defeated many dangerous creatures there. But then Theodore asks if it's dangerous for Alan and Elena to go on adventures with him. And Takumi explains these two are incredibly strong, easily capable of defeating of all for a goblin. Hearing this genuinely impresses the boys, who start praising them a lot, but hearing themselves praised makes Alan Alan and Elena so shy that they cover their faces, though the boys keep the compliments coming anyway. And the next day, everyone visits the Regner family's favorite bakery, and here Takumi has come at Mr. Kedrick's request to teach them how to make cream bread, and Takumi plans to experiment with new ingredients to create an entirely new type of bread, and Theodore and Lettuce suggest Takumi make curry bread and coffee cream bread, and to help make these, Theodore and Lettuce will assist Alan and Elena in the process, and we see all for kids helping each other out. Alan and Theodore kneading the dough, while Elena and Lettuce prepare the cream, and then Elena puts the cream into a piping bag and starts filling the bread with it. But during this process, a lot of the cream ends up smeared all over Theodore and Lettuce's faces, making all four of them burst out laughing, and Takumi is genuinely happy watching Alan and Elena bond so naturally with kids their own age. And just like that, Takumi manages to make both curry bread and coffee cream bread, along with tuna and onion bread too, and all these different breads look absolutely delicious. And after everyone samples them, the moment the bakery owner tastes one, he too begs Takumi, "Please make me your disciple," but Takumi politely declines, and then Theodore and Lettuce say, "Our chef Nyan said the exact same thing to Takumi," and seeing Alan and Elena so happy makes Takumi genuinely happy too. And after several more days pass, the three of them arrive at Posse Mountain, and once their Takumi releases all his pets, telling them there's a small mountain about half a day away, and he wants everyone to head there together, asking Jewel and Feed if they can carry them. But right then Vector shows up too, wanting the three of them to ride him instead, and Jewel and Feed flat out refuse to let that happen, sparking an argument between them. So Takumi steps in to settle this dispute, saying, "Today we'll ride Jewel and Feed. Vector, your turn will come another day." Though Takumi's genuinely a bit worried that if he rides Vector and Vector gets too excited, he might end up falling off, and they start moving forward. But as the path gets increasingly rugged, Takumi tells Jewel and Feet to shrink down for easier travel, and Vector is already about as small as he can get. So Takumi worries he might get hurt on the thorny bush, but Vector ends up ripping through entire trees without a scratch. And once they finally arrive, Takumi asks what they should do now, and Alan and Elena suggest searching for medicinal herbs, and Jewel, Feet, and Vector all want to help hunt for herbs too. So Takumi agrees, but says let's find herbs that we can actually use for cooking too. But then suddenly everyone senses something, and using detection, Takumi realizes multiple presences are approaching, and these turn out to be a group of bandits, and their leader says, "There's no woman among them. Kill this man and take everything he's got. We'll sell these kids off too." And everyone gets ready to face them, with Takumi saying, "I'll handle these guys alone, don't worry." But since the kids and pets also want to fight, Takumi tells them, "Just try not to hurt them too badly, okay?" And then the bandits attack, and everyone charges forward to meet them. But right then Vector rushes ahead and reverts to his full massive size, instantly crushing every single bandit beneath him. And seeing this, Takumi realizes Vector is clearly trying to impress him and make a strong impression, and finally only the bandit leader remains, whom Vector takes down with a single swipe of his paw. And after that they tie all these bandits to a tree, and everyone heaps praise on Vector for a job incredibly well done. And Takumi plans to report these bandits to the guild, though that'll take some time. So he asks the bandit leader where their hideout is located, and terrified by Vector's menacing appearance, the bandit spills everything to Takumi, and they all head toward a cave. And as they venture deeper inside, they spot a bunch of bandits who seem to be partying. But right then Alan and Elena rush in and attack them immediately, and Vector easily handles the rest, taking down everyone without much difficulty. And after tying up all these bandits who, while thoroughly exploring the cave, Elena spots a hidden path, and following it deeper, Takumi discovers an enormous stash of treasure. This is clearly everything these bandits have stolen over time, and Takumi starts storing all these items in his inventory, planning to discuss what to do with this treasure with Mr. Kedrick. But then Alan and Elena spot a nearby prison cell, and inside it Takumi finds a bunch of terrified young women held captive, and Takumi reassures them. We've defeated these bandits, we're adventurers, so you have nothing to worry about anymore. And we see all these women get freed, breaking down in tears of pure relief and joy. And seeing this makes Alan, Elena, and Takumi genuinely happy too. And after that, Takumi tells them, thank you all for handling everything here. And right then Vector speaks up, oh, I'm ready to do absolutely anything for you. And hearing his voice, everyone is stunned, because defeating these bandits has now unlocked Vector's telepathy skill too. And then Vector tells Takumi, I defeated all of them completely by myself. And Takumi says, yes, you're incredibly amazing. Hearing that, everyone else chimes in, saying, praise us too. Seems like Takumi's troubles are never going to end. At the start of episode 12, we see Takumi, Alan, and Elena visit the blacksmith shop, and the man tells Takumi their items are finally ready, and his apprentice brings everything out. First 3 beautifully crafted pendants, along with the rest of their items. And after that, Takumi tries on his gloves made from evil viper hide, which fit him absolutely perfectly. And then the shopkeeper asks Takumi to bring out Bolt, so he can check whether Bolt will hurt anyone's hand when he perches on it. So Takumi releases Bolt right there, but the moment Bolt appears, both men are absolutely stunned, and Rudy exclaims, that's a Thunderhawk. And then Alan tries putting Bolt on his own hand too, while Elena is thrilled trying on all her new items, and seeing them so happy makes Takumi happy too. But the moment they step out of the shop, Takumi notices everyone staring at them, since Bolt was right there with them. In the next scene, Regner asks Takumi if he found any paintings at the bandits' hideout with a silver frame, and checking, Takumi actually finds one painting in a silver frame, and he's genuinely shocked seeing what this photo actually depicts. Honestly, words fail him here, but along with Takumi, Alan and Elena are also staring intently at this painting, so Takumi quickly covers both their eyes, and Regner explains that someone actually wants to purchase this specific painting, and then Regner's butler takes the painting away, and after that Takumi removes his hands from the kid's eyes, and when they ask where the painting went, Takumi says, I gave it to Regner. Sorry, I've been calling him Regner for a while now, but his full name is actually Regner Kedrick. I forgot for a second. Hearing Takumi say this, Kedrick says, please don't say that, or the kids will think I actually wanted that painting, and watching Kedrick get so flustered makes Takumi burst out laughing. In the next scene we see Takumi, Alan, and Elena heading underwater toward Azure Palace, and once there, Takumi asks the priestess for a few more mermaid bracelets, and hearing this, Maiko Haim assumes Takumi's existing bracelet must have broken somehow, but Takumi clarifies, no, nothing like that. I actually have a few contracted beasts now, and I need bracelets for them too. Hearing this, Maiko Haim immediately has for mermaid bracelets brought over, and after receiving them, Takumi, Alan, and Elena say their goodbyes and head out, making their way toward the Saja Nami labyrinth, since they haven't fully conquered it yet, and they teleport straight to the 10th floor, then head toward the 11th floor, which turns out to be completely flooded with water, but since all 3 of them have their mermaid bracelets, they won't get wet at all. And as they move forward, Alan and Elena start guiding the way, continuously pointing out directions as they push ahead quickly. But even after covering quite a distance, they don't encounter a single monster, until Alan and Elena spot 2 crocodile monsters, and they take them both down, first kicking them away, and then finishing them off with water needles, celebrating their victory happily. But then Takumi asks, are you too sure we're headed the right way? We came in this direction because you sensed monsters here. Hearing this makes them both laugh, and after that Alan and Elena defeat a crab monster too, earning 2 potions from a treasure box, and that night the 3 of them sleep inside a protective barrier. The next day they head toward the 17th floor, but as they move forward, they start feeling a chill in the air, so Takumi pulls out some jackets from his inventory, and Alan and Elena look absolutely adorable wearing them. But right then a giant pier monster approaches, attacking them using a water ball, though Takumi blocks its attack with his own water ball, and then the kids finish it off, earning its hide, which can be used to make coats for them. And hearing this, they say they want coats with ears like Jewel and feet, but then a giant turtle monster shows up, attacking them by spraying bubbles from its mouth, and Takumi warns everyone, don't touch these bubbles, they might explode on contact. So Takumi starts thinking about how to defeat this monster, and an idea strikes him. He starts storing all these bubbles into his inventory, and just like that, every single bubble vanishes, causing the monster to panic and start fleeing. So Takumi creates a water pillar and knocks it down, letting seeing Alan and Elena finish it off, earning some food items from this monster, and after that the three of them continue forward. But suddenly Alan and Elena accidentally step onto a trap, and Takumi barely manages to pull them to safety in time, but he doesn't scold them at all, because these two are just too adorable, and after defeating another fish monster, they eat and sleep, and to continue forward, Takumi releases his pets too, and next they encounter some giant crocodile monsters, so Vector volunteers to handle them, and we see him easily defeating these crocodiles. And since all of Takumi's beasts are wearing mermaid bracelets too, none of them get wet either, and after defeating these crocodiles, Vector charges forward excitedly, only to get stuck in a narrow passage, and eventually they reach the deepest floor, where the final boss awaits, and the moment Takumi places his hand on this door, it opens with an intense burst of light, and once inside, the scene is genuinely bizarre. They find themselves looking at an ocean, inside an enclosed room, but suddenly a blinding light bursts out from ahead, so Takumi tells Jewel to keep an eye on Alan and Elena, and then a massive giant octopus emerges from the water, though it's called Little Kraken, and this Little Kraken immediately attacks them, and when Takumi uses his wind cutter to slice off one of its tentacles, it instantly regenerates, and they all barely manage to dodge its attack. Then Alan and Elena combine their water jets to attack it, cutting off to more tentacles, but those regenerate too. Seeing this, Jewel and Feet say they should all attack together with one powerful combined strike. Hearing this, Takumi releases Bolt 2, so all of them can launch a coordinated attack, and then everyone unleashes their strongest attacks simultaneously, and this combined assault completely obliterates the monster into shreds, defeating it entirely. And the moment it's defeated, this strange area returns back to normal, and finally a door appears in front of them, leading to a treasure box, and opening it reveals a sword that appears to be resistant to fire magic. And for now, Takumi just stores this sword in his inventory, and after defeating the boss, everyone gets ready to head back to town. But since they might run into people outside, Takumi hides all his pets back into his shadow, and after several days, they finally return to the town of Bailey, and Kedrick welcomes them home. Then Lettuce and Theodore ask what they did inside the labyrinth. Did they defeat any monsters? And both kids say yes, and then Kedrick tells Takumi, "We weren't the only ones waiting for you to return. Glenwald and Isaac have also come here to meet you." And everyone sits down together, with Takumi asking, "Sir Wald, Sir Isaac, what brings you to here? Oh, forgive me, I accidentally called you by your first names." Isaac says, "No worries at all. Honestly, if you called me Regner, my brother and I share the exact same surname anyway." Then Isaac explains, "We've been sent here on a mission. We've learned that someone has discovered a brand new labyrinth in the town of Bailey, and the king personally wants to meet this person, but he doesn't know who they are, so people don't find out about them. And of course, they're talking about Takumi here. And since these two already know Takumi, the king specifically sent them to bring Takumi to the royal capital, where the king can meet him personally." And Takumi thinks to himself about this king, the king of Gawaya. Maybe I should go meet him. And when Takumi asks about heading there, both of them agree readily. And hearing this, Glenwald and Isaac say, "We shouldn't waste any more time. We should head straight to meet the king. So we'll set out first thing tomorrow morning." But then Takumi notices Theodore and Lettuce looking visibly sad, since these two boys have grown genuinely attached to Alan and Elena, being around the same age, but now they'll have to say goodbye. But before leaving, Takumi wants to give these kids some sweet memories together, so he says, "Let's play a fun game together." And we see Takumi handing Theodore and Lettuce a bubble, which they toss toward Alan. And just like this, Takumi teaches everyone how to play this game. Honestly, I can't quite remember the exact name of this game. If you know it, let me know in the comments. But these kids are having an absolute blast playing it. And right then, Wald and Isaac walk in, seeing all the kids playing together like this. And they remark that Alan and Elena have really bonded well with Theodore and Lettuce. But what exactly is this ball? And Takumi explains, it's a bubble that a bubble armadillo monster creates. Oh, that turtle monster. But as far as Wald knows, touching one of these normally makes it pop instantly. But since Takumi stored these in his inventory, they're not popping at all anymore. But then all the kids ask Takumi, Wald, and Isaac to join in the game too, and everyone ends up playing together. And that night, after having dinner, Takumi puts Alan and Elena to sleep, though they still haven't properly said goodbye to Theodore and Lettuce yet. But after that, Takumi joins everyone else, since tonight they're all having drinks together, and the moment Takumi arrives, Wald pours him a glass, saying, "If those two kids were awake right now, they definitely wouldn't let you leave." And Takumi says, "Given how kind-hearted they've become, I honestly can't blame them for that." And here Takumi tells Kedrick about Alan and Elena's journey. When he first met them, they wouldn't even approach a single stranger. But since then, they've learned so many new things, made friends their own age, and slowly they're growing up right before his eyes. And then Wald says, "Even though the three of you aren't blood related, you're genuinely a real family." Hearing this, Takumi is flooded with memories of everything he shared with Alan and Elena, and he ends up tearing up, wiping away his tears. And Wald tells him, "Hey, stop crying, man. Here, drink some more." And the next morning, it's finally time to say goodbye, and Alan and Elena both say, "We don't want to leave this place." And seeing this, Sil comments that Takumi really should have talked to them about this beforehand. And Takumi tries reassuring them, "You two aren't saying goodbye forever, you know." But instead the two of them walk straight up to Theodore and Lettuce-san say, "We're staying right here with you two." And even Sil is genuinely stunned watching this unfold. And seeing this, Wald and Isaac immediately realize Takumi won't be able to join them for the trip to the royal capital after all. But then Takumi says, "Alan, Elena, will you two wait here for me? Mr. Kedrick, I'd really appreciate it if you could look after Alan and Elena until I return from the royal capital, since these two really want to stay here." And honestly, Takumi completely understands them. They're at that age where they simply can't bear being separated from people close to their hearts, and here they've made to genuine friends their own age. But then just as Takumi starts to leave, Wald says, "Hey, your shadow's moving," and Takumi looks down to see exactly what's happening. And then we see Alan and Elena running toward Takumi, crying. And seeing this, Takumi gets emotional too and starts moving toward them. But before they can reach each other, all of Takumi's beasts suddenly emerge from his own shadow, and honestly, they look even more emotional than Takumi himself. All of them saying, "We don't want to be separated from Alan and Elena either." And seeing these beasts, Wald and Isaac immediately understand these must be Takumi's contracted beasts, and Wald says laughingly, "Honestly, Takumi, you really are full of secrets." And after that, Alan and Elena run up to Takumi and say, "We'll come with you too." And Takumi says, "All right then, but first, properly say goodbye to Theodore and Lettuce." And then Theodore and Lettuce walk over and say, "Alan, Elena, take care of yourselves, and no matter how far apart we end up, we'll always stay friends, and one day we'll definitely meet again." And wiping away their own tears, Alan and Elena say, "Yeah, for sure, we'll definitely meet again." And after that, everyone climbs onto their horses, ready to set off. And even as they ride away, Theodore and Lettuce keep waving. "We'll meet again. Bye-bye, Alan, Elena." And just like that, a brand new journey begins for these three. They're now headed straight for the royal capital, where the king himself wants to meet Takumi. And why exactly does the king want to meet him? Well, you'll find that out once Takumi actually meets him. And when will that happen? That's coming in the next season, because this episode marks the end of this season. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this anime, so make sure to like this video, and let me know in the comments how much you enjoyed this series. Though I'll be honest, if you genuinely enjoyed this video, please take a second to subscribe. Every video takes hours of research, editing, and effort to make. I put my heart into creating content that entertains you, and seeing your support means more than you can imagine. If this video made you smile, taught you something new, or was worth your time, hit that subscribe button and join the journey. Your one click motivates me to create even better videos for you. But hey, no worries, as long as you all enjoyed it, that's all that matters to me. And with that, I highly recommend you watch Black Clover. It's still ongoing, and once you start watching it, I'm sure you'll love it. I'll see you in the Black Clover videos. Thanks for watching.